Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Harwich Accessibilities Rights Committee. It's quite a mouthful, isn't it, to say? Anyway, today's Tuesday, April 11th, and I'd like to call the meeting to order for each one of us to announce who we are. I'm Mary Ann Campagna, and I'm the chair of this committee.
Donna McCaskill.
Donna Richardson.
Lynn Budell.
Eileen Garrity.
And we are missing Alexa Page, so I'd like to put that in the notes that she's not here. Okay, Lynn? Okay, the first thing we're going to do is approve the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve minutes.
Thank you, Don.
Second.
Do something.
Okay, good. So, I really would like to welcome Carla. Carla, you've been very, very wonderful in emailing us and giving us some valuable information. And the first thing the committee needs to talk about are the attachments that you sent us. And I'll just be, actually, I should say who you are. You're the Assistive Technology Coordinator for our Brooks Library here in town.
Correct, it's Carla Burke.
What did I say?
Yeah, and I also coordinate the vision impaired technology assistance at the library program, which is known as VITAL. And that's a program since 2003. We're using volunteers. We provide free one-on-one instruction in the use of the library's assistive technology to patrons who have mainly who are blind or who have low vision, but in some instances, other types of disabilities as well. So, and we provide reference referrals, reference information, referral services. In fact, if I could take a minute, I did bring a packet for each of you. I might ask Larry to actually pass them out. Are you right there?
I am. Right
Okay,
here.
so everyone gets one of those.
Okay.
And each one of these packets, it has our VITAL brochure, which describes in more detail what the assistive technology is that we have, how the training program works. It has my contact information, phone number, and email address. And, you know, the handouts that are inside the brochure are just a sampling of some handouts from our resource shelves that are located on the second floor of the library, opposite the reference desk. We have brochures and handouts, catalogs, all sorts of information for people with disabilities. Again, particularly because we see people who are blind or who have low vision struggle with using library for reading and et cetera. A lot of those resources are geared towards them, but some of them aren't. And I just wanted to mention the ones that I'm giving you are ones that I always like to hand out. They are, when you meet a person with sight loss, with hearing loss, basic sighted guide technique, and then a brochure from the O'Neill Center for Disabilities at Cape Cod Community College. All of these provide the etiquette and tips that should be used when interacting with people with different types of disabilities. So I think they're a great resource to have, and I always tell people, share them with as many people as you can. Any of the information that is created in-house at the library that we create is available in different formats: print, large print, in Braille, electronically by email, or if needed, we have volunteers who will read the information aloud to patrons. So if any of you would like the information that I gave you in a different format, please let me know.
Okay.
If it's something that a nonprofit or an agency or organization has given us to put on our resource shelves, they would have to be contacted to get the information in a different format. But it's available to anybody to come into the library and just sort of browse those resource shelves and take whatever you want.
How many volunteers do you have?
Currently, I have 4 volunteers who provide training, and I have 2 that provide another service because we actually provide a downloadable service for people who are registered with the National Library Service, which is available to any U.S. Citizen who has a print disability. So it doesn't have to be a vision loss. It can be a learning disability, a physical disability, something that prevents the person from being able to read regular print. And part of the National Library Service is they offer online through the Braille and audio reading download service, the site. You can, if you're registered with the NLS, you can get a free account and download books in Braille or on audio. And because some people have difficulty doing that, we teach people how to do it, but we also have volunteers who will do that for patrons if they request it. You've probably heard of Perkins Braille and Talking Book Library. So they're the Massachusetts network library for the National Library Service. And we also keep a collection, circulating collection that we change every month of books, talking books on digital cartridge from the Perkins Library and players that they provide. So that's one of the services. Because we have an institutional account, we're able to do a lot of this through Perkins. So,
Wow.
okay.
Impressive.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
well, it's, as Larry's seen over the years, it does. Oh,
I'm glad you're here, Alexa.
Alexa, this is
Yes,
Carl
did I-
Burke.
Hi,
Alexa
Alexa.
Page, nice to meet
Hi,
you.
nice to meet you too. Do you have room there?
Good, we're all here.
Wonderful, okay.
Relax, Alexa.
Yeah, Alexa, just sit back, relax.
I know that I watched your the recording of your meeting, your March meeting, so I knew that towards the end you were talking about different, had different questions. And I know that you want to discuss the documents I sent, but I also didn't know if you wanted a little bit of information that I put together about some of the issues that the Disability Committee worked on when I was on the committee, which was actually 2 different times, from October 2003 to November 2007, and then again October 2010 to June 2013.
Wow.
I don't know if that's
How
something
does the
you're
committee feel
interested in.
about hearing what Carla is going to bring to us?
I'll take all the help I can get.
Hmm?
I'll take all the help I can get.
Yeah.
Okay.
Donna? And then we'll get, and then I think it's imperative because we do, I know, I wonder if we should flip-flop it. Are you in a hurry?
I do have a 2 o'clock.
You have a 2
Okay,
o'clock.
so
That's
fine.
Can we do that second?
Sure.
And get to the topic of the, well, I guess it is the website, but what it really is the public notice of non-discrimination, those documents that you had sent us. The grievance policy and procedure, and then the third one is the reasonable accommodation request form in coordination with Megan. So, in the last week or 2, I received an email from Carla about her, I don't know how to phrase it, digging or found information saying that these documents were approved in 2012, the documents that I just told you about. And I felt, I didn't want to put the cart before the horse, and I wanted the committee to discuss the fact that Carla has information that they were approved. Megan is our ADA coordinator, and we're the new, now named, the HARC Accessibility Rights Committee. So I, in my opinion as chair, I felt the committee needs to discuss this. And what we need to discuss is, do we start all over again and look at these documents as a committee and then present them to you? I'm a little confused about where we go with documents from 2012. So I am so glad you're here, Megan.
If I may, the guidance and the documents aren't something that the committee produced. They are a boilerplate policy, reasonable accommodation form that is used throughout, I believe, the country. Definitely the state, but probably the country. So it's not something that you'd have to reinvent. I think it may have some updates with contact information, but I believe all of the information is still valid, and I don't believe much of it needs to be changed. So if you look at it and feel that something is missing, you wouldn't necessarily change those particular forms.
Mhm.
You would want to look at either a new policy of some sort.
I have a question. What has happened since 2012 till now? Why is there such a gap?
Carla may know more than I do, but I don't believe any ADA laws.
No, so just a little history. These documents, when I was on the committee, we actually brought those, recommended, because it's just an advisory committee, we recommended them to the selectmen to adopt as town policy and procedures. What our committee did was to look at different sources, particularly through the ADA, and put those together. There were public hearings on that at selectmen's meeting. They had it, as they would do before adopting any policy or procedure. And Larry can back me up on that. You have a public hearing, and then usually have one reading and then a second reading. So at the time when they were adopted, we requested that they be put on the website. Well, the website was quite different back then, and they were never put on that on the website. And so, but they still remain, as far as I'm concerned, and I think the town, because the selectmen, they did go before the selectmen and were adopted, they still remain forms and policies that the town would use. I think this all came up because I saw you at one of your meetings, you were talking about developing some sort of grievance. What if somebody has a grievance? And that's what
That was something,
prompted me,
yeah.
to go back through my notes and find these. And that's what prompted, actually, the last email that I sent was information that, as I was talking with Jenny Hewitt, the library director, she dug a little bit, as librarians do, into documents and things that were available on the website, came up with the Board of Selectmen's October 9th, 2012 minutes that stated that they had been adopted. Also, the 2010 annual report of the Disability Rights Committee mentioned them, because one of the things, the public notice of non-discrimination, was actually adopted in 2010, but then was revised slightly and adopted in 2012. I only forwarded you the 2012 one, because
Okay.
that's the most recent.
Yeah,
But
that's
that's
the one I
why
have
the
right.
2010 shows that. And then the third thing was the Chronicle article that showed some work that was being done on Main Street. Because in 2012, I believe, actually it might have started it was in 2012, but wasn't concluded until 2013. Our committee actually filed 2 grievances. We had one of our members who did that with filled out the forms and all. But we used the documents, the form for the grievance policy and procedure, and followed that. The first one was for the walking path behind the community center, the fields and the walking path around there. We didn't, when we reviewed the plans, and I will talk about that a little later, because that's one of the things that our committees did, was to review town plans for projects coming up. So we realized that as it was first developed, the surface was not an accessible surface, and so it didn't meet ADA standards. So that went through very quickly, because what we ended up doing was the committee had money from a warrant article in previous years that was supposed to be for the use of making the town more accessible. So our committee gave up the $12,000 of money that we had from that warrant article to go towards purchase of a accessible surface. So that one was an easy one. The other one was the Main Street crosswalk. There used to be a crosswalk midway between where Bank meets Main Street and where Oak Street meets Main Street. And it was inaccessible. There were no curb cuts. So we asked that it be moved to the corner of Oak Street and Bank. And it took a little bit more. We worked, the DPW was wonderful. We had somebody from the Mass Office on Disability come down to support what we had asked for. And eventually that was done, and now there is an accessible cutaways and crosswalk there. So those were the two instances that document was used when I was on the committee. So that was back again. I left the committee in 2013. Since then, as you know, there wasn't a committee for quite a while. And then, so I don't think these documents were ever reviewed or used, and they were never posted, as far as I can tell, on the website. The other thing I just want to mention while we're talking about them is the public notice of non-discrimination. That definitely was adopted by the selectmen, because part of that, if you look at that, the section on protocol, part of that states that every meeting agenda, town meeting agenda, and program should include that statement of, if you are deaf or hard of hearing, or a person with a disability who requires an accommodation, et cetera. It's in that paper, and perhaps
Under the protocol.
under the protocol.
Yeah, I see it right here.
That actually was on all of our agendas, the selectmen's agenda, other board and committee agendas, and some committee and boards still do that. I know the Board of Trustees, the library trustees do that. Somewhere along the line, and I don't know where, the selectmen stopped putting it on. But that had been part of the town's directive from the selectmen to include that. And again, that's one thing that I did want to point out, because as your committee, it might be an issue that you want to bring up again and approach the Board of Selectmen, because I feel very strongly, and I know there are people in town, and probably some of the board members as well, feel strongly that that should be included on the agenda.
I haven't paid attention. I just say, I haven't paid attention, that should be on there, so.
Yeah, I mean,
Are we sure it's not? I thought it was.
I thought it was too, but it wasn't intentionally taken off, it could have been forgotten.
yeah, I haven't found it on the electronic copy. It could be on a
Okay.
print copy, but unless my screen reader's not reading it.
That's an easy correction, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carl. My input into this, if I may, would be, I think it'd be very appropriate, because it's been some time since this is all done, and as Carla says, the committee, as Don knows, because he goes back a ways, the committee became not functional, partly because we lost an ADA coordinator after John Erickson left. No one picked up that role, and kind of lost that meaningful link with the town. What I'm hoping will happen is that you will take the information that Carla brought, comments that Megan had, go back and review that, make additions if you wish to, and then confirm what you want to bring to the selectmen, and bring it to the selectmen so it gets a full airing. So we publicize the documents on the selectmen's meeting, after town meeting, everything's kind of held back. So we bring that forward again, because it has been, it used to be published, that needs to be brought forward again to the public at this time.
And even if changes aren't needed, so if you review them and everything's still valid, and you just wanna promote them again, they can be put back on an agenda as just remember these exist, and this is how you access the Harwich Accessibility Rights Committee. This is our, we'll have your website up by then, and these are the policies. But if you do need a change, if you review them and feel that things are outdated or there's new information, we would need to do a public hearing with the Board of Selectmen to review, do a first reading, a second reading, and then an approval of the changes.
So how would the committee feel about reviewing what Carla has sent to us, what we already have? I think we should put a group together to review it and then take your lead and move this forward.
That's the part that concerns me, based on what's been happening or not happening for 10 years. And I was thinking maybe another group could get together with a plan for moving it forward, whatever is decided upon. Because to have it sit for 10 years,
What's that?
The policy and
the
the
policies
notice
that Carla
of
was
these
responsible,
documents.
or her group was.
Mhm.
And that's what concerns me, is the action that was not taken over the period of when they were written and to this day.
Could I just say, I think that reviewing them is a great idea, as Megan suggested, if they need to be updated and go again before the selectmen. Just like other town policies, they're still in effect, okay? So even though they haven't been posted, there are, I can attest, other town policies and procedures that are not on the website, but they're still in effect because they've been adopted by the selectmen. So, you know, a review of them certainly, I think, would be helpful. And if changes are made, they would have to go through that procedure again. But if you don't see the need for any changes in these documents that are already accepted by the town, as Megan said, maybe just bringing them forward to the selectmen just so that they can sort of reiterate and let the town know that they're there, and then move forward and put them on the website, which is what we had originally hoped that they would be done. But they are still, you know, policies and procedures that have been in effect for these, since they've been adopted. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You know, I just,
So would there be 2 people on the committee who would like in the next month to review these and report back to the committee?
I can do that, some of that, or Or
Okay,
work
I
with
think
other
2
people.
people should do it.
I'd be happy.
So we have Lynn and Eileen. I think you have copies of it. I hate to give up mine, but I certainly will, because I can just print them out again.
I actually brought a copy
okay.
as well, because one
Prepared.
of the suggestions I was gonna make too, if I may,
Sure.
not necessarily today, but certainly when you come back with your review, because the packet is not posted with your agenda, that it would be helpful. I mean, one of the things that we always did when I was on the committee was to read aloud any documents that we were discussing or any correspondence, because because people that were on the committee, should they not be able to read it themselves if somebody brought forward a print copy. But I think even more importantly now, if it's where your meetings are being recorded, it would be helpful for people listening to that. So if they heard something at the meeting when you read something aloud and they had a comment to make, they could get in touch with you.
So are you asking us to read these 3 documents aloud? Or, because we just read the titles of them. Is
Right.
that what you mean?
Yes.
To read the entire,
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily today, but if you're going to have a subcommittee that's reviewing them, and they're gonna email or come back to you and say, we didn't think we needed to make any changes, or yes, we wanted to add this line. You're the only ones that are gonna know that, should they email that information to you. But people who may be in attendance at one of your meetings or who watch your meetings will have no idea what the document says, and may want to make a comment about it, and may want to either comment here if they're at the meeting, or they may want to get in touch with you. I know that can be lengthy, but they're not that long. One is just 1 page, and the other are 2 pages long. But can you see the significance or the importance?
I think the
of-
committee should decide how you'd want to move forward. So we have 2 people who volunteered to review it. How does everyone feel about then our 2 members come back, make any changes, and read it aloud at our next meeting and have some conversation about it, and then decide how we're going to move forward from there? How does that sound? Committee?
I volunteer for the moving forward part
Yes.
because
Yeah,
I'm already been impatient by the time it's taken.
okay.
It definitely makes sense, it allows communication and open, like, transparency, so it definitely makes sense to do that.
Thanks, Alexa.
So,
I don't want you to think we forgot what you want to talk to us about, but I think I might move this around a little bit. So let's just be sure, is everybody in agreement about how we're going to move forward on these 3 documents? I don't think we need to put it to a vote, so, okay. I'm anxious to hear from Megan about the update on Channel 18, which is on our agenda, and town website, because I think there's some discrepancy there. And then I wanted to also review the form that Lynn Boudel put together 1 or 2 months ago. She wasn't here last month. So can you explain that to us about the difference between Channel 18 and the town website?
Sure, Channel 18 is the public access, the video part. They record things and post them to YouTube and also to our website. Our website is controlled and updated by the staff at Channel 18.
Uh-huh.
So we have, his name's Caleb Ledoux, and he's been doing our website in addition to recording meetings. He was actually just here. So he will do training on how to adjust a website for department heads or admins that have a website. For your website, he would just need the okay from administration to form a website for the HARP, and then someone, whoever you choose, could talk with him about what your website should look like, what you want on it, what forms you want on it. And then if you're savvy and want to control it, he'll give you rights to your website where you can add and delete and change forms and put up news and announcements and things like that. If you don't want to have that level of control, you can always email Caleb what you want, and he will do that, the technical side of things. So Caleb will give you a little training on how to do things, but he'll also just be your one-on-one, either with a virtual call, a phone call, or he'll meet with someone who can tell him, on the left side, I want these forms accessible by a button, and on this side, I want website links and things like that.
That's excellent.
Yeah, cool.
So just using myself as a guinea pig and an
Yeah.
example.
I think that makes sense.
Now I know why it took 10 years.
I tried to send, I did send an email to this new young woman, Sarah Eaton,
Yes, she's our IT
with the
director.
with the names of our new members, Donna and then Alexa, and then unfortunately we had a death on our committee. So I just wanted that updated. I shouldn't have done that.
You can do that. She isn't your primary point of contact for the website. She's absolutely capable of doing that. But the Channel 18 staff it's in their job description to handle
So
that.
Caleb is the main man there.
Caleb
I'll get
and
his-
Caleb and Jamie Goodwin, she's
Jamie
the Channel 18 station manager. She's the department head, Caleb works for her, and they have another staff member as well,
I'll
but.
get those email addresses
Sure,
then
and
before we
I'll-
leave,
I'll-
I think.
I'll send out an email that kind of lets them know that you're going to be reaching out.
Would you
That
CC me
was-
then and I'd have their email address?
Because that was
Thank
my
you.
mistake. When it came last time, I pointed people towards Sarah rather than Caleb.
And she may eventually have some control over it, but right now she's so busy with, the other
And I-
grades.
I talked to Caleb before our meeting last night, and he's fantastic. He's excited. Maybe I shouldn't, maybe that's overstatement, but he's very willing and interested in helping out any way he can. He really is.
And you can post your agendas to that page, if you wanna do packets like Carla was talking about, like the Board of Selectmen have, packet materials they post the day before the meeting. That includes all of the paperwork, and it's just PDF'd and into an electronic form. You can post that to your website, so, people at home can open it up and blow it up so they can read it if they have, low vision and,
I didn't know that. I mean, right now I send the agenda to the select board and then to our members.
and
So-
it gets on the town website, the main page with the agendas and on the calendar, but once you have your own subset, you will be able to put it there.
Now, Carla, we're coming.
Take your time.
Sorry.
No, this is.
So, everybody has seen this form that Lynn put together. But I felt like it was dormant, Lynn, because you weren't here and then something else got in the way. So I think we have to decide if we're going to go forward with it and how do we even do that? You have this.
I do have that, and the one suggestion I had was putting a date on it.
Yeah, I
Okay.
said the same thing.
Yeah.
It went out electronically.
Do we have extra copies of that form you just showed?
This one,
Yeah, do you have extra copies?
not with me. I can make them.
It was sent electronically before the February meeting.
So can I just say, here's a perfect example,
clumsy.
Mary Ann.
Excuse me,
I handed it out
second go.
at the February meeting, and the group reviewed it and suggested that the form should have the date on it. And so following that meeting, I added a date. At the beginning, it says today's date. And I emailed a copy of the revised form to you, Mary Ann, and to you, Megan. And that's the last I
That's where
heard
it
of it.
Well, okay, so I have date written on mine too. So do we need to have the committee review this again because Alexa's new? Donna, you do have a copy of it, Donna.
Can I just?
Sure.
I just want to say this is an example of what I was speaking about earlier, that I have no idea what document you're talking about, never seen a copy of it, and your audience who's going to watch this meeting would have no idea. And where Alexa hasn't seen it, you know, this is why it's important not only to communicate what you're discussing, reading it, or, you know, aloud for all of you, but even for people with a disability, a print disability, would need to hear it aloud. So, you know, here's an example of what I was mentioning before.
I understand. So once we do that, once we read it aloud, and once the committee would vote on it, then what do we do?
It's a form, not a policy, so it doesn't require the Board of Selectmen to
Oh.
approve it. And then you could make that a fillable form and put it on the website,
Okay.
and it should have, a link to where it should be sent, you know, and that's something Caleb can work with you for.
Okay.
Fill this form out and hit this send button, and it will go to the HARC email, and it will go, or to the ADA coordinator's email,
Mhm.
mine. And then it can be available for download and print,
Sure.
someone to fill it out with a pen and with an address of where to send it. That's
Exactly.
one thing I don't think is on the
No, we
form,
need
is
an address on it.
where to bring it.
Megan, is there a we set up now that they can put the information in the packet that goes out with the agenda? Or is that waiting for
Yeah,
something else?
Note that when you send your agenda to Agendas At, or are you posting it yourself?
I send it to selectmen and then I send it to the committee, that's all
Okay,
I was
so
told to do.
So there, did you get a committee handbook? Must have gotten a committee handbook. There's, how to post a meeting.
Town of Harwich Committee Handbook,
Yeah,
yes.
and there's how to post a meeting, and there's an email address that you just send your agenda and any packet material to, and they'll upload it. So if you wanna look at Board of Selectmen packets, they're giant, but you can see how they're sectioned off with, each topic has its own PDF, so you don't just copy everything and have one giant PDF. You'd have one PDF with your agenda, one PDF with consent items, one
Mhm.
PDF with new business, one PDF with each one, so it's, you can navigate through them better.
Okay, I guess
Yeah.
I have to learn how to do this.
And that might be Carly, yours concerned about getting information out ahead of time.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, currently now I've signed up, the town office, the ability to sign up to receive emails from certain departments. So I do get the selectmen's agenda and packet. I get the HARC agenda through that email. And that's, that's where I'd say it would be great if a packet was attached. Because it is, it's nice to know ahead of time what's going to be discussed at a meeting. So if somebody saw the agenda, saw the material, and said, oh, I want to make a comment, or I have an opinion about that, they could show up to your meeting, knowing ahead of time,
Yes.
so.
One of the features of our website, I'm not sure you're aware of, is you can sign up for alerts for certain things. So you can sign up for alerts of just Board of Selectmen information or just HARC information. And anytime something new is posted to that particular subset, you'd get an email that says there's new information, so it alerts you to go to the website.
Okay,
Good. I just have a,
sure.
when you were involved in the committee, it was, had one name and now it has another. Is that gonna be an issue? I mean, as far as,
have no idea.
do we use our current HARC as the,
I mean, I only been on this committee like most of us since April of 20, oh my gosh, it's gonna be a year.
Vote to change the.
Well, you were on it.
Yeah, I was a committee of one.
What was the name of it?
yeah, what did you name it?
I gotta go.
I-
Larry was here and I was here, that was about it.
But that was brought back to the board, I have to go back and review the minutes.
Yeah,
Because if you read it, that's a committee, that's our decision. It still refers to the ADA in the documents, because that's the regulatory
can I just,
aspect of it.
you want me to give a little history of that too?
Sure.
When the committee was formed by the selectmen, they gave it the name Harwich Disability Rights Committee. And that's what it was all the way up through. The committee that Matt Hart chaired, they voted to make that change. And so they brought it to the selectmen and asked them to change that. So it was at that time, which was what, it was the previous board to this before it lapsed. There was a time between. But it was that committee, I think you had Matt Hart come in to one of your
Yes, we did.
things, yeah. So he and his committee asked the selectmen to change it to Accessibility Rights Committee.
But it was Harwich Disability
Rights Committee, that was the original name that the selectmen gave it. Every town has, or is supposed to have a committee or a commission for the purpose of making sure that the town follows the issues of accessibility for disabled residents. If you look, and I will talk about this a little bit later, what our committee did with other Cape towns, but if you look at the different websites, Brewster's name is different, Eastham is different. It depends upon how the name is given with the selectmen that set up the committee. So that's how ours got.
I'm clear about what we're doing, about, let's just going backwards a little, about the 3 documents that Eileen and Lynn are going to review. I do think it would be a good idea for, can we add this to your review? The form that Lynn produced, and then we can look at it all again at our, review it again next month, and then get moving, and then make our decisions and make a vote on it, and get it to Caleb at Channel 18.
Yes.
Okay, can you pass that down to them? Thank you. Okay. I hope you don't think we were rude. I just needed to get these agenda items done, and I know you have a time constraint, so I think we're done with that
Is that the only?
on our agenda.
difference between
So,
these two?
Carla, you had some things you wanted to talk to us about.
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank you for the invitation to come, because I think giving you some background, not just the documents that I sent you, but giving you some background might be informative, I should say, or helpful.
Thank you very much.
So, and as I said, I did copy out everything that I've sent. If somebody didn't get a print copy of it or would like to make copies from that, I do have those copies.
do?
Yeah. So what I wanted to start with is just to talk about a few of the issues that we worked on when I was on the committee. And I see you doing some of this already, because one thing that we thought was really important was making a connection with the different departments in town. And I've noticed that you've been having different people from the different departments come in, which is really great. One of the things that we did consistently was that we had a wonderful person on our committee, Paul Erickson, who mainly did this. But when the town, any department in the town or anything that was coming to be, whether it be a building or the walkway or whatever, we would get the plans from that department or from the planning department and review those plans for accessibility. For example, the walkway, we knew when we saw those plans that it did not have an ADA compliant surface. So we were able to work with them to make that change. The first use of CPA, Community Preservation Act monies that the Recreation Department got was for the playground at Brooks Park. That initially, those plans, that was not going to be an accessible playground. And when we saw that, we were able to work with the Recreation Department until the plans were revised to be, so that it was accessible. So I think that the fact that you're meeting with different people from different departments is fantastic, because if you can keep that open, that relationship open, you would probably hear some of these things that are going on. Having a relationship with the building inspector is really important. We often had the building inspector come to our meetings to talk about the different plans that we had reviewed. As you probably know, that there are ADA standards, there are Massachusetts Architectural Access Board standards, and local and town regulations and bylaws. The most stringent of all those is what is what needs to be followed, okay? So if there's an ADA standard about, say, the number of disabled parking spaces, and your town has changed so that their bylaw states they want more based on the number that are done, that's the one that takes precedent. So the most stringent standard takes precedent. And so sometimes it's hard to follow all those, but the building inspector has a grasp of those. And so between the ADA coordinator, who would know the ADA standards, and the building inspector, who knows the different things, it's a great resource to have. So I don't know, I've never met the current one. Is it Dave Anderson? Is that the current building inspector, I believe?
I think that's right, but
According to the website?
He's news to me as well.
Yeah, so I mean.
We've got turnover today.
So, that, just having that, I mean, also when the new high school was being built, we met with the Monomoy High School Building Committee and went over the plans with them for how they were making meeting the standards for accessibility there. So, it's just an idea to do that. Okay. I did want to also mention CART. I know that Alexa, is it Alexa?
Alexa, yes.
Alexa, I know you've probably heard about this, and maybe the rest of you have too, but computer access real-time translation, CART, is a service that is provided to people who are deaf and hard of hearing. And one of the things that happened when I was on the committee was we had, in couple of subsequent years, a town resident who asked for an accommodation for town meeting to have a CART reporter. And basically what the CART reporter does is takes whatever's being said aloud and types it so it appears as print on a screen or at town meeting. So after a couple of years of having her fill that out, that accommodation form, the selectmen, and I have to say, we didn't even have to file anything. The selectmen said, hey, we've seen that there are residents in town that need this. So they voted to make CART available at every town meeting. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention because it's something that as a committee for accessibility you might want to follow, because it is something that is ordered by either the IT, it used to be the IT person. I've spoken to Sarah about this already this year, because I had a resident come to the library to ask about it, and I referred it to Sarah, and I spoke with Sarah. But Sarah, the IT director, works in conjunction with Channel 18 because Channel 18 sets up the equipment for town meeting. And so the special equipment that's needed for CART, they're involved in setting that up. I believe, and Larry can correct me if I'm incorrect, but the monies to pay for that are held by the town clerk. They're in that budget. Is that correct, Larry? I think that it's used to be Anita that paid it.
Yeah, it's not. I think now we pick it up as a town government expense.
Okay.
That was one of the issues we had in the past, is who's going to pay for it, and the town clerk, Anita at the time, felt that was an overall town responsibility for the CART.
Okay.
But nevertheless, it's covered that part. I would ask, I'll try to follow up too, but we did miss a CART at the last town meeting, and in checking afterwards, turns out, Carly, you probably know more than I do on this, but it turns out finding a CART reader to do that is they're in limited supply. And when we being the town, contacted I think we contracted that to someone in New Hampshire, as I recall, because they do it over, internet. They're not necessarily here.
Yeah.
It was too late. They were filled up. So I reminded Joe, I'll remind him again, you might wanna follow up too, and be sure that we're scheduling this in time to get it at this town meeting.
Right, it really, I mean, I spoke to Sarah,
And
I
she's
think it
probably
was
already
a
following
month
up then.
ago, yeah. What I did is I provided her, the Massachusetts Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing has a form online that the town would fill out, and then they would send, they would connect the town with someone who's available to do that. So I sent her that information and also included the names of a couple of CART reporters that I had, if she wanted to try, the town wanted to try to set that up,
And I'll remind him as well
directly,
that our
yeah.
problem is that
yeah.
we all seem to have our town meetings at the same time.
Yes, I know, one of them is the same time as Dennis, and we've switched, the woman who used
You're
to,
right.
the CART reporter, sometimes it's done us, sometimes it's done them. The nice thing is now it can be done remotely. When it first started, the first few years, we had someone in place, but that's something that I think, if you know the town meeting's coming up in May, easily by February, if not before, you have to start reminding the town to set that up, to make that contact and get that in touch. And then the other thing that we did, and you might want to think about doing this too, and I'm just trying to give you these suggestions, you certainly don't have to follow them, but the last time they had it at town meeting, as an assistive technology coordinator at the library, I got complaints, and I passed them on to the town, to Sarah, because what happened was, when we first had CART, our committee, the disability committee, had funds from that warrant article, and we purchased a large screen that was hung in the gymnasium, that could be pulled down, and that's what the text was projected on. You'd have to check with Carol and Carrie, but I believe at some point that was damaged, and I don't know where that is. So in subsequent years, they've done the text on the wall. They've had it on a smaller screen that they've just put up, standing upright. But what we did initially, and one of the town residents has offered to do this again, someone who is hard of hearing, who I gave her contact information to Sarah. But we would go in the night of town meeting while everything was being set up, and have somebody who was hard of hearing and needed to use CART work with the CART reporter to say, okay, this font is the type of font is fine, sans serif. The size of the font works. The separating the paragraphs is working. Just to make sure that visually it was all set up before town meeting happened. And I don't think they've been doing that in recent years, and the complaints have been that the type is so small and runs together, and it's just not workable. So the other thing too is that we used to make sure that the town sent electronically, if need be, the CART reporter that was hired to do town meeting, a copy of the warrant, so that the CART reporter could preview it before the night of town meeting in case there was questions about how to spell words, or how to, phrases she might not be familiar with, he or she. So it's just, it's such a wonderful service, and it's really needed, not only by people who have hearing loss, but also the praise from people attending town meeting that maybe couldn't follow all those long strings of dollars, amounts, but they could hear it and see it at the same time, and so they had two senses that absorbed that information. So I know that people around me would be saying, oh, I'm watching the screen, I'm watching that text, and they didn't have a hearing loss. So, it's an issue of accessibility that's really important.
So, I don't know about anyone else, but my question is, how do we know if there's a CART report for this year's town meeting?
You'd get, Oh, go ahead, I'm
No,
sorry.
go ahead, Carl.
I was gonna say, you'd get in touch with Sarah Eaton, the IT director. She was given the information. In the past, it was the IT director who booked it, Foster Banford, prior to his leaving. So I would check with her to see if she's done it, and if not, has she passed it along to have somebody else in town do it? Okay. Okay.
Carly, before you leave that subject,
Mhm.
you're right, the screen that we had before was damaged.
Mhm.
And that needs to be replaced or something done. The size of the print, do you know, what's the issue there? Is projector not satisfactory to do the job, or is it?
Technically, I'm not really sure. I think the size has to be adjusted with the reporter. The type of font, how it runs, the sentence, how the spacing has to be set up by the reporter.
So you think the equipment's okay, it's just that it wasn't set up
The
correctly?
larger the screen, the more that she can get, the larger the type can be to fit on the screen. So that's why our committee purchased a really big screen that was just a pull down, if you remember that one, Larry.
Yeah.
The one that when it went to the wall, the complaints that we got when it went to just being shown on the wall was the gym wall is not a smooth surface. So it looked like, I don't want to say wavy, but you know what I mean, like it's blocked.
Difficult
So,
to read.
yes, it created difficulty because of the surface of the wall.
Yeah.
And so then they went to a small screen, one that you would use for like home projection, where you just stand up the screen. And then to get it all on there, the size was reduced. So I'm not sure whether that's something that is just because of the size of the screen, or whether it's something to do with the remote reporter. But that's why it's so important to plan a time the night of the town meeting to check all that before town meeting opens. But when the wires and everything are being laid, put down for the reporter. Because unless you check that, it's gonna be too late once the town meeting starts.
Okay,
Then.
well, I'll get hold of her and report everything you've told me.
Okay. Okay, another question that I know that you asked at the end of the last meeting was in terms of other Cape committees, Cape disability committees. And there's supposed to be a disability or accessibility, or whichever name the town gives it, in every town in the country, I believe, but certainly here in Massachusetts, but every town, I think it's an ADA standard. So what we did in our committee, and this was really helpful, was we contacted the other committees on the Cape, and we developed an exchange of agendas. So when, say, Chatham Accessibility Committee was having a meeting, all the members of our committee by email would get a copy of their agenda. And when we posted our agenda, they got a copy of our agenda. So for all the committees that we exchanged agendas with, we saw what issues they were working on. Some of them were the same as we were working on. Some of them were different. If it was different, it gave us ideas. Hey, maybe we should look at our town and see, is that an issue here in Harwich? So it was really helpful to do that. We also met with people, like some of us would go to some of their meetings, and some of the representatives, the members, would come to our meetings, so that we could see how their meetings were. They provided input, we could provide input. So it was just a great relationship that we had with most of the Cape committees, accessibility or disability committees. At the time, some of them were inactive, so we didn't do that with every town. But you can get a list and contact information by going to each town's website and going to the webpage of their accessibility or disability committee, or the Mass Office on Disability keeps a listing. I don't know if they keep it up to date, but they also have a list of committees and contact person and contact numbers for that person. So that's what we did with other Cape committees.
Thank you.
Another thing that maybe Alexa can talk about this more too is we took a field trip to Cord, and we met with the Cord people that worked at Cord, and they were so helpful. And we saw what services they offered and who they offered them to and what their policies and procedures. We went over some of them with Cord. One of the things that we brought away from that meeting was that Cord, as well as some state agencies, et cetera, have a policy that their meetings be sent free. Is that still the case with Cord, Alexa? Sent free?
I'm not aware of that. I don't think so.
Okay. So they used to post on, and I haven't looked at any of their meeting agendas or program agendas recently, but they used to post that the meeting was sent free, and basically, if you were, it asked people in attendance of a program or a meeting to refrain from using scented products,
Yes.
perfumes, yes, et cetera.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's still a
Still there.
ongoing policy,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
including advocates.
Great. It's so important because what we found was we actually had people come to our meetings who had a chemical disability. And I know that at least one instance, I saw somebody who attended a selectmen's meeting who had a chemical disability. So we came back from our Cord meeting and we talked about that. And we developed a policy and procedure, a little blurb for the agenda, for it to be on the agenda. And we adopted it as a committee. And then we also brought it forward to the selectmen and it recommended that they adopt it. They chose not to, so it never became a town policy, but it continued to be a policy of the Disability Rights Committee. And I did not bring a copy of that information, but I can get that to you if you think that's something you would want to do, or if it's something that you would want to work, again, take it back to the selectmen as a possible adoption. Maybe not, maybe as a preference or a suggestion to people to try to refrain from wearing perfume, scented products. But I think the issue that we felt as a committee was we were supposed to be working for people with disabilities. And there is such a thing as a chemical disability. And so we just felt it was important to advocate for those people as well. So if you want that information, I can get that to you at
I'd be
another
happy to have
time.
it and I can distribute it.
Yeah, yeah. But I just think, that was a huge help that we came away from that Cord meeting with that information.
Do you mind if I ask, when did you meet with Cord?
I would have to go back and look, but it was on one of those times that I was on the committee, so it was sometime, I think it was probably my second tenure, which would have been from 2010 to 2013.
Okay.
Somewhere in there, yeah, because the policy that we adopted was sometime during that
Gotcha. Okay, understood.
period. In fact, in the selectmen minutes, Board of Selectmen minutes, I think that I emailed, and Ann Stidel, the secretary who researched that for the selectmen, it was in those meetings. I think it also mentioned then the policy for scent-free meetings that was not adopted.
Was
but
not.
It had not been, no, they chose not to do that.
Well, you're giving us a lot, and I
know,
still
I'm
have
sorry.
some other things to review on our agenda.
I should stop then. If I can just mention one more thing.
Sure.
It has to do with the website. That in one of the emails we talked, that I sent to you, Mary Ann, and I think you shared with the committee, I mentioned Mass Office on Disability, I provided that information, and so my suggestion, because it's not a policy or a procedure or a form, it's a resource. One of the things I think you might want to think about if you do what Megan suggested, which is a great idea, and add information on your own webpage, the HARC webpage, is to have a resource section and have different resources available, information, whether they just be the name and a link to that agency's website, or a phone number and a link. But I certainly think that you'd want to have the ADA information hotline.
Yep.
And their ada.gov website, MAUD, because again, something to consider. I know that I sent you the information about the Community Access Monitor training that
Yes, I
MAUD
have
does.
that on my agenda, that
Yep.
I'm going
And they have another one coming up if you missed that first one, because that it's a wonderful resource. And as I hear you reviewing that report, the summary of the report that was given to you by Sean, having taken that CAM training, and we actually hosted it when it used to be in person, Harwich hosted it, you learn about those standards. You learn about the state, and you learn about the different things. And so it helps when you're reviewing plans or the summary, what's the correct standard to use and so forth. So I would definitely say, that you can also get on their email list, and they do lots of training and have lots of information. So ADA, MAUD, you might want to consider the state agencies, Mass Commission for the Blind, Mass Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission, and I certainly think CORD.
Yes, I was gonna ask
yeah.
that, but then I wasn't sure.
CORD, they're such a great resource. There are nonprofits that if you wanted a list too, I could provide, and I'm sure you can all come up with some too.
Yeah, you're giving me, or us, so much information.
So much, too much. And one thing to consider too, please, consider a link to our Vital page on the libraries, to the Vital webpage on our libraries, because that's a service that the town provides. And I'll stop there, I won't go any further, but just to say thank you for having me come
Oh, you're welcome.
and talk.
You're welcome.
I'm so pleased that the committee is active again, and that you've got some great people here, and you're doing a great job. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Okay.
Did you have any handouts you wanted to leave with us? And
Oh, I can do that. They're basically just the information that I already sent to you, but I did print out.
Okay, I can.
So
grab these
that-
For you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are all the copies of
Okay.
everything that I've emailed to you. And again, if you want it in a different format, please let me
This
know.
is good.
Okay. All right.
We're finishing up. Did you want to leave now, or?
You almost done? It's gonna take me a while to pack up, and I don't wanna.
It's up to you, I can walk you over now, or
Okay.
I can wait till
Yeah.
after the meeting.
Larry's gonna be my sighted guide and bring me
Oh,
back to the
okay.
thing, so I'll wait and just
Okay,
be quiet and
thanks.
listen to this. Okay.
I just want to move along here. Don McGaskill, we need a report from you.
Can't get a hold of him.
We're talking about Sean Libby.
Yeah.
So Don was given the task.
He isn't calling me back, and he hasn't answered my emails.
Okay,
I'll keep trying, that's all I can do.
okay. If you don't mind,
No,
I would appreciate that.
no.
I'm not involved in that, but with Sean Libby, that is the issue that I've experienced at the Harwich Community Center. They told me he was notified, the part was ordered, but the door's still not fixed. I'm just adding to his list of Sean
Were
Libby.
you there recently? You're talking about the front door.
I am, no, I probably haven't been there the last 3 weeks.
Because I was there about a week ago, and I made sure I checked it.
Okay.
And it is working, and I was very happy, because I wasn't very happy, I was here about 2 weeks ago, to see that the doors into Town Hall were not working.
They
But
are
today they
today.
were.
They were, yeah.
Today
I
they were.
actually used them.
So, yeah. Okay, and then we have another Sean Libby, an update. I did hear from Sean Libby, sorry. Sorry, John. And a work order has been submitted regarding the height of the handicap signs in town. And it has begun.
Parking.
Yeah, by the
Yeah,
parking
okay,
sign,
okay.
you know what I mean, I'm
Yeah.
going like this, you know. And some signs will need more work to correct, but he hopes to have it completed by June. So I was very happy to hear that. So again, that's about the parking, thank you, the
Yeah.
parking sign height. That, I took that portion on, and Don is trying to get information about the size of the signs, the tactile. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, he supposedly has a list of all the ones that are missing. I don't know if that's true or not. Otherwise, I gotta go through that whole,
That whole list again, yeah. Okay, and then one more thing, a reminder, I wanted to tell everyone about the Community Access Monitor Training on May 3rd and 4th. It's a Zoom meeting between 10 and 3. So Carla sent us that information, I forwarded it to you twice, so I just wanna make sure you all had it. Lynn, did you say you were going to be able to go, or are you still? I'm away,
I
so
would like to go, and I know that it rolls over, so if I can't make one, then there'll be another opportunity. Right now, my life is consumed with medical tests and appointments. I can't commit to anything
fine.
with a date, so.
just wanted to bring it up. Okay, I think our next steps are pretty clear, what we're going to do.
Yep.
Do you have anything, Don, or Don,
No.
Lynn, Eileen, Alexa, anything you'd like to bring up before I close the meeting?
Would you, and regarding those links for the different websites the websites that we're gonna add to our own website for the town, would you like me to give you like a blur each description, provide you the contact info?
I would be thrilled.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, and I think you have my email address?
I do,
Great,
yes, and I
thank
do.
you.
And I would afterwards, I do wanna get your phone number too, just
Sure,
in case I can
at the end of
remind
the
you
meeting.
that I was late like today.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to make a motion then to adjourn the meeting of the Harwich
Second.
Accessibility Rights Committee. Don?
second.
Okay, and second, anyone?
Second.
Eileen? Okay, it is 2:15, so